How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today I want to talk about where Bitcoin is going. What kind of prices are we looking at? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get better? What are big investors doing? And is there a future for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency after the FTX collapse? So we're going to talk about all that, kind of give a realistic scenario. And as much as I can try to predict, I will. But of course, a lot of us didn't predict the FTX collapse, so just take this with a grain of salt. I think it is probably good to think about things in the worst case scenario, kind of plan for that, but then get ready for things to hopefully get better than that worst case scenario. So I did a worst case scenario video just a few days ago, and then I did a best case scenario video just a few days ago as well. This is the realistic case. Now, overall, crypto has been decimated. We know that. In the last 7 days, almost all cryptos are down 20, 30, 40%, some down 99%, 90%. So just know that things can always get worse. But I think it is important to look at what's going to happen moving forward. What kind of big events do we have? Well, we do have the next CPI reading December 13. So that is coming about a month away. Then we have a Fed meeting right after that, but we do have some big data coming out in just a day. We have the PPI, which is the Producer Price Index. This shows us kind of a leading indicator of what's happening in the economy, what's becoming more expensive, what is becoming less expensive to produce, and then we can see kind of how consumers will react to that over time. So this is something really important to watch, but it's not as well known as the CPI. Most consumers look at the CPI, but Producer Price Index, again, is kind of a leading indicator. So the crypto market is going to be heavily influenced by inflation. It's going to be heavily influenced by what the Fed does and what stocks do. We have to know that. So there's still going to be these times where they're uncorrelated, like with FTX. If there's a lot of contagion from this, obviously that could really hurt the market. Even if stocks rebound, we could still see a lot of hurt in crypto if these entities have to keep on selling off assets. There's just no getting around that. Now, with that in mind, if that data comes in good, it comes in lower than expected, and assuming we don't have a lot of contagion, we could definitely move back up, and we'll get to specific prices here in a second. But you can see the Digital Asset Fund Flows weekly report actually came in quite positive. You can see we actually had a pretty large inflow of 42 million, and this is the largest inflow in about 4 months, 14 weeks, and this is actually after FTX and Alameda collapse. So they say that this was primarily later in the week because of the extreme price weakness. Their own explanation for this was that investors see this price weakness as an opportunity differentiating between trusted third parties and inherently trustless systems. So I think this is another good point. With the FTX collapse, it really shows why we need Bitcoin. We need money that's not tied to these centralized entities, and you can see a lot of big investors are buying Bitcoin with 18.8 million in inflows. We have some going into short Bitcoin as well, of course, which I kind of take as a negative. So I almost like to minus that instead of add it. So we would actually have about 25 million less, but that's still a 17 million inflow, which is more significant than we've seen in a while, or more significant than we typically see. We also have seen 20,000 more wallets reach 1 Bitcoin in the last few days. Now, some of that might be due to the fact that people are moving Bitcoin over, so there just might be more spread out Bitcoin. So if someone had 5 Bitcoin and they start to move, and they had maybe 2 Bitcoin on a new wallet and they're moving the rest of it, they have now another Bitcoin wallet with at least 1 Bitcoin. But I still think that typically this doesn't go down too much. So it's probably a lot of people that have been adding over the last few days, and then maybe just some entities that, again, are trying to move crypto around. We're also seeing a lot of smaller withdrawals, which shows that a lot of smaller investors, smaller, $10,000 and less, are starting to self-custody, which I think is showing the maturity of the asset class growing, that as more investors realize that self-custody is the safest way of having your crypto, storing your crypto, more and more investors are going to do that, and that really shows the use case for Bitcoin specifically. So let's talk about the price. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about if everything goes smoothly, the contagion is fine, the CPI numbers come in low, and the Fed stops raising rates. And sorry for the change up in space here, the internet went out, but we're just going to talk about kind of the lower limit. Now, the reason for that is because I don't think we really need to talk about the upper limit right now. I don't think we're going to 300K anytime in the next couple months or next 6 months. I think there's going to be a lot of healing that has to happen. And we did a lot of that predicting back in the bull market, and it didn't really matter in the end. I think it just got people to FOMO in, possibly at the wrong points, and not have a good strategy. So that's why we're kind of sticking to the lower limit, at least for now, just because it is, I think, a little bit better for people that are trying to dollar cost average or trying to plan out how they want to invest over the coming months, especially in a sticky time with the recession coming or already here, depending on your thoughts on that. So we're going to stick to that, but if we move back up to 25, 30,000, we might already be out of that lower limit. We might have already hit the bottom, but let's go through a couple of the numbers that we have to pay attention to right now. Now, of course, not too many people guessed that FTX was going to collapse. So of course, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen in crypto. You kind of have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. But as you see here, we had never gone below the 300-week moving average. We kind of just bounced off of it back in 2020, even with COVID. And you see that we broke through it really aggressively here recently. We were the 300 week was up around 18,000. We fell all the way under 16. Now, that is not a very good indicator of the bottom anymore because we've broken through it. So let's look at the 350. You can see that we bounced right off of it. We were really close to it here. So I think we kind of have to hold this in the short term, but let's say we do take another leg down. I think we would probably want to look around the 400 week. Now, of course, this is getting very long. We're talking about like 8-year moving averages. This is right around 14,000, around 13.5 right now, 13.6, which is pretty much what a lot of analysts have been expecting to be the bottom. Now, of course, it's going to be hard to tell, and we're really not going to know until we're already back probably at 25,000 or 30,000. Probably after we broke that prior resistance that we saw back during the summer. We're not going to know that this was the bottom or whenever the bottom is until we're back at levels much higher than this, because we don't know when kind of contagion event or when these different exchanges could have to offload crypto, and that's going to be really the big thing that happens that could send us further down, as if more exchanges collapse or some other black swan event. You can see we've just been hitting lower highs consistently, so hopefully we do break that trend. Or if you believe in crypto long term, which I definitely do, I think this really shows that we need it now more than ever. Maybe you do want us to fall a little bit lower so that you can continue to accumulate. That's what I'm going to be continuing to do as well, along with good quality stocks. Now, let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Where do you think crypto is going? Do you think it's going to zero, or do you think it's definitely got a place now more than ever? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Check out the links down underneath the video to moomoo if you want some free stocks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.